So what's happening, guys? It's me Parth, and a couple of weeks ago I did a what's on my iPhone video that almost no one watched. But in that video I asked you guys whether you'd like to see a what's on my Android video, and a few of you guys said yes. But the thing is that I basically have the same apps on my Android phone, pretty much the same apps that I have on my iPhone. But there are still a few different apps, and the most important difference is the setup. So this is what we're doing today. This is a tour of my probably clean Android setup. Hope you like it. So of course it all starts from the lock screen, and I've got a pretty standard, the stock one of course, nothing fancy going on here. But I think you'll like the wallpaper. It's not the most minimal one, and also definitely not the cleanest. It's some sort of a graffiti image, but it looks really amazing, and that's why I have it. I'll leave it linked below. But once we get into the home screen, there's a different wallpaper for that, and that I think really looks clean. It's some sort of a scenery. I don't think it's been shot, I think it's been painted or something like that. Absolutely soothing to look at. Again, I'll leave it linked below. Now, the first thing that you'll notice is of course my date widget, which for some reason does not showcase the time. But it's actually from Minimal UI for Super Widget Pro. Mine is actually the 16th one in case you're wondering. But then there are tons of widgets that you can choose and mess around with. I've actually also modified this version. It's nothing like what it was by default. I've basically expanded the square and rounded off the corners by a little bit, and I've increased the font sizes of pretty much everything, and then I've basically center aligned the month within the square but at the bottom. You can take a look at the magnitudes and values of everything that's in here. But then at the bottom there is the Google search bar that we now have on the latest Pixel phones. Now this is from a third-party app which I got from the Play Store. It's known as Wizorg Widget app, and it's got different types of Google search bars that you might want to mess around with, including this one. And if you notice, I've actually not spread it right across to the edges just to have some more breathing space. I think it looks pretty sweet. Then there are the icons, and of course I have an icon pack installed. The present one that I have active is known as Spheroid icon pack. It's basically got rounded icons with a really clean design and minimal color scheme, although it does mess up with a couple of icons like that of the Real Racing 3, but for the most part it actually fits the setup quite well. Oh, and also I do have the menu button replaced by that of the fingerprint sensor, because why not? But that's about it. That's what I have on my first page. Moving on to the second and the last page, there is this beautiful calendar widget. Now you might be aware of this and you might already be having this, but I can't lie, this is my personal favorite widget in my entire phone. So firstly, I've got the dark theme active. Obviously the light just doesn't do it, and then I've actually reduced the transparency of the widget by about 30% so that the wallpaper shines through it. Further on, I've actually also color schemed the weekdays and the weekends. So I've got the weekdays as red and the weekends as green, obviously, and it looks absolutely amazing. The rest is pretty much standard. There is the font size, there is the text font itself, and a couple of other features that need your money to be unlocked. But I'm really happy with this, and from my side, it's highly recommended. Now that's pretty much all about the setup. That's all that I have. Basically everything that I need, and not even a single thing that I don't need. But then there are a few apps that I have on my OnePlus 5 that I didn't on my iPhone. First of which being Pure VPN. Now this is my VPN app of choice. It's a pretty secure one and it works all the time. Plus it also has some really unique features apart from just being a VPN service, like ad blocking and malware protection. It's a great app. I'll leave it linked below. The second app that I like to talk about is actually the one that I also had on my iPhone, but I just can't stop recommending it. And it's my email app of choice, and it's known as Newton. Now the reason I recommend this to everyone is because of its unique features like read receipts. So you actually get notified when someone reads your email along with the location of the reader, which is probably this app's USP. You can also schedule emails and a bunch of more stuff. It's pretty interesting and pretty unique in its own way. Highly recommended again. But on the second page there are a couple of interesting apps, first of which being Spicy. Now, Spicy is a pretty unique app. This is actually a spying app, as the name suggests. And so if you're a parent or a guardian or a mentor, And if you want to keep an eye on the activities of the person you're concerned about, you can actually install this app on his or her phone and then track the usage on your phone. You can track their location, you can track their call log, their messages, their browser history, basically everything you'd be interested in, which is kind of next level, to be honest. Although one thing to note is that this is a web-based application, so you won't really find this on the Play Store, but I'll leave a link to this in the description so you can basically get it from there. Next, backdrops, which is actually a wallpaper app, and it's presently my favorite wallpaper app of all time. My present lock screen and home screen wallpapers are actually from this app itself, and the collection is just absolutely amazing. But moving on, there is this pretty interesting app that you probably haven't heard of. It's known as App for Type, and it lets you add text upon your images in a pretty interesting way. So firstly, it's a pretty sweet looking app with a very minimal layout, all the options right at the bottom, and tons of breathing space. So with this app, you actually select a bunch of preloaded pieces of text and put them on top of your images. Now sadly, you can't type in your own piece of text, although the ones that come built in are also pretty good. And you can do some creative stuff, like you can actually hide the text behind an object in the image. For example, in this image of mine, I'm actually hiding a part of the text behind my shoulder. And this is it. This is what it looks like. Can't really deny that it was done in Photoshop. But the next app on the list is known as Get Screen Wallpaper. This actually lets you retrieve your lock screen and your home screen wallpapers and save them to your gallery. This doesn't really sound like it's needed, but once you get it and once you start using it, that's really when you realize it's so convenient. But that's about it. That's basically everything that I have. That's basically everything that I use on a daily basis. In the menu, I do have a couple of really less used apps. First of which is kind of a unique app in itself, and it's known as Screener. Now this actually has a lot of 2D and 3D models of a couple of smartphones and also smartwatches, in which you can actually load up screenshots and export to your gallery. It's pretty convenient for a person like me and actually looks really cool. The second pretty interesting app that I like to show you is actually another icon pack, the one that I was using before, Spheroid icon pack, and it's known as Flat Row. It's got the same round icons, but they're actually really flat and have a great minimal feel to them. And I actually do keep flickering between Flat Row and Spheroid. Oh, and they also have some pretty trashy wallpapers, by the way. And speaking of wallpapers, I also have the Wallpapers app from Google itself, which is actually one of the most underrated apps because the wallpapers in there are actually pretty intense. But that's basically it. That's basically what's on my 128 gig OnePlus 5. Pretty sure I haven't even consumed 10 gigabytes of storage, but I think this setup is fun. That's the cleanest that I've ever been. I actually don't really customize my phone a lot, but this is actually the first time I installed the Super widget, the Nova launcher, and all of those stuff. Again, as usual, I'll leave all of these things linked below, so make sure to check that out. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've got to have for this video. Hope you liked it. Feel free to share this, and I'll catch you in my next one. Take care. So what's happening, guys? It's me, Parth, and a couple of weeks ago I did a what's on my iPhone video that almost no one watched, but in that video I asked you guys whether you'd like to see a what's on my Android.